Hello, fellow cyborgs, and welcome to my top books of 2016. I have 11 that have made this list with 4 honorable mentions that all got 4 stars. The first I would like to talk about is Enemy by Kay Eason. This is a fantasy book with a mainly matriarchal society filled with people of color. They're the prominent race in this world. Main female protagonists galore. There are also ghosts, and we get to venture into the physical realm of death, which is part of the mythology in this. It's just practically ticks all of the boxes of what a fantasy book would do for me. It was a really fun read, and this very much deserves an honorable mention. Then Emma by Jane Austen also gets an honorable mention. So far, this is my favorite Jane Austen read. I really love the character of Emma. She's naive, but it's because she's sheltered, and there are quite a few grumpy, introverted characters in here that I really identified with. And also Mr. Knightley is probably one of my favorite Austen heroes. Dombey and Son by Charles Dickens. This is currently my favorite Charles Dickens that I have read, and I wouldn't have picked this up if not for Katie from Books and Things, so thank you very much. This is a beast of a book, but it is mostly involved with psychology and social relationships. It really interestingly looks at gender roles. There are some kick-ass female characters in here, and it was just an absolute joy to read this year. And finally, Dead Mountain by Donnie Ecker made this list. I gave this 4 stars. It's one of my new favorite nonfictions. The thing I love most about this was how the victims and the people involved in this incident were so very much brought to the forefront, made to be important. They weren't just sensationalized. I thought it was excellently done. And now on to the proper list. Number 11, this is How the Blessed Live by Susanna M. Smith. I read this in April, and I read this because of Mercedes from Mercy's Bookish Musings. This is a story about a pair of twins and how their 2 lives have split. It is a mixture of prose and poetry. It's really short but packs a punch, and I really loved Susanna M. Smith's writing style, and I am certainly hoping that she is for reals working on her next novel because I would desperately love to read it. Number 10 is Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell. I read this in May, and this was another Mercedes recommendation. She's just got so many that she recommended me that made my top books this year. I loved how absolutely easy it was to read all 6 of the novelettes or novellas that make up Cloud Atlas, and how even if I didn't particularly like some of them more than others, I did like all of them. David Mitchell seems to be a master of being able to write whatever genre is necessary, and I especially loved how he changed the language and dialects in here to denote different time periods. It was just freaking fantastic. The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet makes spot number 9. I read this in August, and I was coerced into reading this from Elizabeth from Books and Pieces. This is the best of both worlds in fiction and science fiction. It's genre bending. This is an excellent gateway book for science fiction, and this is one of the few books this year that made me laugh out loud. That doesn't often happen, and it's because the characters in here are so really endearing. They're so incredibly endearing, and I have the hardest time picking who's my favorite. This is a slow-moving, culture investigating sort of book that also makes you question your own culture along the way. It's just really fun, really important, and really easy to read. Number 8 is The Arrival by Sean Tan. I read this in March, and this was another Mercedes recommendation. This is a silent graphic novel, the only one that so far I've read, which I think is absolutely wonderful because silent graphic novels have no text. You get to build the story yourself, and you, no matter what sort of literacy or language that you read, can read this together. And without words, the pictures discuss family, immigration, fitting in, the disorientation of culture shock. It's just so much packed in here for only 2 words spent on the story, The Arrival. In spot number 7 is Backwater by Joan Bauer, which I read in September. This is one of my new favorite children's middle grade, or maybe even YA. It's one of those books that tiptoes between YA and middle grade because of the era it was written in, which was like the 90s. That was before YA was really a thing. But in any case, this is a wonderful, quiet story about introverts, about finding your own place in your family, about snow and animals and family. I I think I already said family again. In here, there are lots of dead relatives that were as much characters as the actual living people in here, which I think is a fantastic thing to happen in any book, and especially in a younger audience's book. So this was one of my biggest surprises of the year as I bought this for a quarter at a library book sale, and I'm so glad that I took the chance on it. Villette comes in at spot number 6, which I read in October upon Katie from Books and Things recommendation. This, I believe, will be my new favorite Victorian classic novel, beating out Jane Eyre. Lucy Snowe is such a kindred spirit and such an unreliable narrator. She begrudgingly tells you the story of her life while keeping some things private and telling you about some things way late to the game, but it's a really different story than Jane Eyre, a lot more realistic, and something that I think I will be coming back to again and again and again as I grow older. Revolutionary Road makes spot number 5, and this was also a Mercedes recommendation, which I read in November. This I just gobbled up. I think I read it in 2 or 3 days. I could barely put it down. Of all of the books that I've read, I think this perhaps is one of the most perfect books. It is a completely closed circle. It is the best little nugget of a book. Everything makes sense. Everything matters. Not a beautiful word is wasted. The language is absolutely beautiful, and the conclusion could not have been more poignant. I absolutely love this, even though the themes in here would not normally interest me, and I certainly need to try some more Yeats in the future, because even though this is his pièce de résistance, I reckon that I'll probably enjoy reading some of his other stuff too. Spot number 4 goes to At the Mouth of the River of Bees by Kais Johnson. This was another Mercedes recommendation. I read this in February, all the way early in February, which seems like a completely another year in itself. This is my favorite short story collection, and this definitely puts Kais Johnson on the map of one of my favorite short story writers. Not that I have a list going of that or anything, but all of these short stories had purpose, point, pacing, and a perfect ending in my opinion, even the ones that I didn't really like Spar and Ponies. Those was really weird. This started off my love of Kais Johnson, and throughout the year I read all of her published bibliography, and I'm eagerly awaiting anything that she comes out with next. I thoroughly enjoyed this, and some of these stories will haunt me for the end of my days. The number 3 spot, which is my only poetry collection that made this list, is The No You Never Listened To by Maggie Royer, which I read in September. This is my favorite poetry collection of the year, and it is such a very important poetry collection. It has to do with sexual assault and everything that is involved in the aftermath of that, physically and mentally, especially mentally. It goes into the stigmas and the misconceptions around our time period, and in this modern day and age, that is such an important conversation to have. This is just the poetry collection that I urge you to pick up because it is so important and it does it so beautifully. Coming in at spot number 2, and perhaps the last surprise of this video, if you are keen and know about me on my channel, where else would you know about me, whatever, is The Color Purple by Alice Walker. This is so far my favorite read into my journey in Black literature, and this, like Revolutionary Road, I gobbled up, could barely put it down, 2 to 3 days maximum. This short little novel, good job Amanda, covers so many different nuances of human questions. I recommend that you check out my more coherent review if you want to hear specifically what I loved about this, but overall it would just pack such a punch for such a brevity of a story. I was amazed at what managed to be fit in here, and it was just done so well, and I enjoyed every minute of it as much as you can enjoy a story that is full of some very, very awful things. I hope none of you are surprised by this book here, because I think I've been talking about it a lot toward the later half of the year on my channel, because I found my new favorite book of all time in July of 2016, which is perhaps one of the things I can be thankful for 2016 for, and that is East of Eden by John Steinbeck. This guy is my new favorite book of all time. If any book that I have read can be described and summed up in one word, and that word being lovely, it would be East of Eden. I am so pleased that I listened to Mercedes of Mercy's Bookish Musings talk about East of Eden, and I kept it on my radar, and I finally gave in and picked this up, and then I read it, it immediately rather than letting it languish on my shelves. So many things could have kept me from East of Eden and from realizing that this is an amazing book that just touches my heart so deeply. I love how Steinbeck can characterize people in 2 paragraphs, and you understand how they think and how they move about the world and what's important to them. His characterization's fantastic, and his writing style is way easier to read than you think it would be, and way more beautiful for its relative simplicity. This is not a dripping lyrical sorts of thing. This isn't Gone with the Wind. This isn't Dickens as far as the, descriptiveness of the writing style. This is just so dang good. So because of this, I'm embarking on more Steinbeck. Hopefully I will enjoy it and love it, but I don't expect anything will quite match up to East of Eden. Thank you for watching this video and listening to the books that made my 2016 just a bit more bright. I hope that you found your new favorite novel in 2016, and if you haven't, that you will in 2017. Please let me know in the comments down below your top read of 2016. I would very much love to creep on your life and also maybe get some book recommendations. Until next time, I hope that you are reading some lovely books and enjoying the new year and continue to be lovely. And as always, thank you patrons so much for being a part of this channel and being a part of my life. I very much appreciate you, and I certainly hope that the new year is treating you well and that you had some fantastic reads in 2016. And in this modern day, and why?